about a young Englishman who, at the beginning of the book, we see him abandoning a car in France. He's obviously on the run from something, but we don't know what. There's blood in the car. He's very traumatised. He's very upset. He doesn't really know where he's going, and he begins hitchhiking after he's abandoned the car. Runs out of water, and when he comes to an isolated farmhouse, he goes to ask for water, and then as he's back on the road again, something happens and he becomes injured. I don't want to say too much more than that, but basically he's not sure if he's become a prisoner or a patient on the farm, and that's the opening chapter really. Years ago, I used to go to France a lot. I used to go camping with friends over there. And we hitchhiked ourselves over there as well. So the opening scene, which was is my starting point, which that sounds an obvious thing to say, but it doesn't always work like that. Of a young man walking along an empty road with a rucksack, thirsty. That was something that I could associate with having done something not a million miles away myself. And then it was the idea of somebody becoming trapped in this very isolated, reclusive setting, and not sure what's going off. And I developed the scenario around that really. I try and follow as strict a routine as possible, but to be honest, it doesn't always work out like that. I do, I treat it like an office job, a desk job, but it's very hard to switch off, and it is difficult really to be as disciplined as that all the time. I can't start working really until I know what's happening at the end. So I like to have a plan as much as I can to start off with. But then once I start writing, inevitably it changes. So although I like a blueprint, but I know that once I get into the book, it will inevitably change. Stone Bruises was quite refreshing because there was a little bit of research in it, but not an awful amount, and certainly nothing like with the David Hunter books. So I was used, from being a journalist, I was a feature journalist rather than a news journalist, but I was used to writing about things that I had no particular knowledge or experience of until I came to write that article. So that was useful, and also I've had experience of just picking the phone up and approaching people and finding out who the best people to help me with various bits of say scientific or police procedural research were. So I found it very useful. Yeah, it's much bigger basically is the bottom line. I think there's so much more of it to do in a book, and then it has to be tied much more into the narrative, because what you don't want to do is suddenly dump a whole load of information into a story, into a fictional story. So it's about weaving any research that I've done, whether it's for forensics or whatever, sort of weaving it into the story without making it look as if I'm lecturing. So I think that's probably the main difference. I think it depends on the journalist, really. I think it depends. For me, I'd done some sort of crime-based journalism. I visited a body farm in Tennessee, and that side of things. But I was very much a general. I didn't specialise in the articles I wrote about. I would write about anything. Crime. I drifted towards that because they were the sort of stories I wrote naturally, I think. So I think it depends on the journalist and depends on the books, really. I didn't feel that way at the time, or didn't realise it so much at the time, because after the fourth David Hunter novel, The Calling of the Grave, I was all set to carry straight on with the next one in the series. And it happened that because Stone Bruises is an old idea, it's an idea I've had it's been germinating for a long time, since well before the Hunter series. But there were things about it I wasn't happy with, so it was always going to be a book I would write at some point in the future. But I found that I was starting to think more and more about this book rather than the next David Hunter, and eventually I just I realised that this it was going to be quicker and probably more satisfactory for everybody if I wrote this, got it out of my system, and took a break from the Hunter series. And so I think it seems to, from my perspective, it seems to have worked out. I think that tends to be the case even when you're writing one book. Part of your mind is still sort of ticking over ideas for the next one as well. So he didn't muscle his way in, but he was always there. I don't know. It's not. I mean, my books are published in Scandinavia, but I wouldn't say they're especially successful over there. The main market's Germany, and as to why that is, I really don't know. I think that it could be a case of right place, right time. I think the look of the books originally was very intriguing, very different. A lot of different factors, but I mean, I've asked the question an awful lot, and I really couldn't say. I mean, I'm very glad it's worked out like that, obviously, but as to why, I don't know. Chapter 1. The car is running on empty. There's been no sign of a garage for hours, and the petrol gauge is needling into red. I need to get off the road, but the fields seem endless, intent on funneling me along to the engine's last gasp. Even though it's still early, the day is arid and hot. The breeze that whips through the open windows only stirs the air without cooling it. I drive hunched over the wheel, expecting the car to die at any moment, and then I see a break in the green barrier. On my left, a track cuts out of sight between wheat fields. I turn off, bumping over the rutted surface, not caring where it leads, provided it's out of sight. The track dips down to a copse. Branches scratch at the windows as I edge the Audi into it and switch off the engine. It's cooler in the tree's shade. In the ticking quiet, I can hear running water. I close my eyes and lean my head back, but there's no time to rest. I need to keep moving. I check the car's glove compartment. There's nothing identifying in it, only junk and a nearly full packet of cigarettes. Camels, my old brand. As I reach across the passenger side for them, I become aware of a smell. Faint but unpleasant, like meat left out in the sun. There's something smeared on the rich leather of the passenger seat, and also on the unspooled seatbelt that hangs on the floor. The tough fabric is nearly severed at one point, and when I touch it, my fingers come away sticky and dark. My head swims to think I've driven all this way with it in plain view. I want to put as much distance as I can between myself and the car, but I can't leave it like this. Branches push against the door as I get out. There's a stream running through the copse, and my hands are shaking as I soak a cloth from the glove compartment in it. The seat wipes down easily enough, but the blood is clogged in the seatbelt's weave. I scrub off as much as I can, then rinse out the cloth in the stream. Water flares over my wrists like manacles of glass as I scrub my hands, scouring them with sand from the bottom. Even then they don't feel clean. I splash water over my face, wincing as it stings the grazes on my cheek, and go back to the car. It's coated with dust from the road, camouflaging the black paintwork. I use a rock to smash off the UK number plates, then fetch my rucksack from the boot. As I lift it out, it snags on the mat covering the spare wheel. There's a glimpse of something white underneath. I pull the mat aside, and my stomach knots when I see the polythene-wrapped parcel. I lean against the car, my legs suddenly weak. It's about the size of a bag of sugar, but the white powder it contains is far less innocent. I quickly look around, as though someone might be there to see, but there are only the trees and the background hum of insects. I stare at the package, too tired to process this new complication. I don't want to take it with me, but I can't leave it here. Snatching it up, I cram it deep into my rucksack, slam the boot, and walk away. The wheat fields are still empty of life when I leave the copse. I fling the car's number plates and keys out into the tall stalks before taking out my phone. It's broken beyond hope of repair. Still walking, I remove the SIM card and snap it in two, then throw the pieces into one field and the phone in another. I've no one to call anyway. The road's grey tarmac ripples and distorts as the sun climbs higher. The few cars on it hardly seem to move, caught in the heat, until they flash past in a sudden blare of colour. The rucksack rides high on my back, my own private monkey. I walk for almost an hour, until I feel I've put enough distance between myself and the car. Then, holding out my thumb, I begin to hitch.